Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to read and write files in R. As you can see in the bottom right, we have this patients.csv file. It's just a table with information about different patients. So we can click on it and we can import the dataset. So here we have the code preview of what code is actually being run, and we can go ahead and import it. So this is the table, as you can see, with patient ID, name, age, arrival date, departure date, and so forth. But this is the simple way to import the data, but let's actually write the code in our file. So let's clear this. So to load our data, we can write df, that stands for data frame, read.csv. And in these parentheses, you're going to put the path of where the file is. So let's go to our Finder. And this is what we want to put into our CSV, or what we want to read into our data frame. So we right click here and copy patients.csv as path name. Come back to the file and put it in the parentheses. So here we load it, the data frame's in there, 1,000 observations with 7 variables. The 7 variables are the columns. So there's some functions we can do to inspect the data frame. So if we have a data frame that has a lot of rows, for example, this is a decent amount, which is 1,000. Let's say we just wanted to see the first 6 rows. What we can do is write head df, and then we can see the first 6 rows. Or else our console is just going to be 1,000 rows right here. Another thing we can do is see the structure of the data. So we can write str df, and by structure we can see each column, and we see what type of column it is. It can be character or integer, and in which case the character makes sense for name because we're using strings, and the integer makes sense for age because we're using numbers. We can also use a summary function to see the statistics of the dataset. So we can write summary df, and this is really good for numeric columns, but not as good for the character columns, because we can see the min, first and third quartiles, median, the mean and max, but you're not going to get that with the characters. So when we pull in data, we can further customize it. So I'll copy this and write a second data frame. So df2, and what we can do here is we can put in header is equal to false. So the header says whether we want to keep our headers in our file or not. So what I mean by that is if we run that and we see df2, notice how the headers are now included in the table. So it's just the first row. And the headers are now a default v1 to v7. So the default value is actually true. So by writing false, we're customizing it. But if we just write true here, then it'll be the same as this line above. Another thing we can customize is the separator. And by default, when you're pulling a CSV file, the default is a comma. So you can have it as a comma, a space, a dash, or whatever you want it to be. So we can write here sep is equal to, this is the default value. So by running this, nothing's going to change. But if we put a space here, run that, and we look at df2, one second. The separator is no longer a comma, and this is all, it messes up the data set. So let's go back and put in the comma, run it, and see that it got fixed. So let's change this back to true. So now it's no longer using this first row as a row, the headers as a row. So let's say you've done what you wanted to do with the dataset and you want to export it now. So instead of read.csv, we do a write.csv. So I'm going to copy this and just get rid of read and this df2 and do write.csv. And we want to indicate what we're pulling, what we want to export, which is, we'll do df2. And we want to rename this file because it's going to overwrite the patients.csv. So what we're going to do is we're just going to call it patients.output.csv. So let's go ahead and run this. Yeah, I gotta get rid of this. So get rid of the sep and header, run it, and then right here in the bottom right, a file appears of patients_output. So let's read the file that we just wrote. So in order to do that, I'll copy this and let's call this df3. Read.csv, and this path patients_output. So let's run this, and you'll notice in the environment pane there's 8 variables instead of the 7. That's because when we export our dataset, it brought along the index in df2. So what I mean by that is the index right here, it brought along this column right here. So to modify that, we can modify our write.csv and customize that. So right here we can put, just to show you df3, we added this extra column was added, but we don't want this. So we go back to write.csv and we include this line, row.names is equal to false. Row.names allows the index to be included, so that's why we're going to keep it false here, because the default value is true. So let's run that again, and then run this, and we're to 7 variables. So it no longer includes that column. So with that, these are some basics on how to read and write data frames with files. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.